Hi, I'm Aviva Goldfarb with the 6 O'Clock Scramble, and I want to talk to you about basic knife skills, what knives you need and how to use them. A lot of people ask me what knives I use or what basic knives, if they're starting out, what knives they should buy. My son is moving into a house this year and he is going to need to stock up with some knives. And I have a whole knife drawer full of knives, but the truth is I really only use 2 or 3 of them. So I'm going to show you what I use and what the most important elements are when thinking about what knives to buy or use. So the one that I use the most is called a chef's knife. And this is your basic straight edge knife. And then the second one that I use almost as much is a serrated knife, just a little short serrated knife. And then, because we do like to eat our bread, we have a bread knife for bagels and bread, and that's mostly what we use this for. There's a few other gadgets that I do use, like a garlic press. This is the only garlic press I've ever had that actually works. It's a Pampered Chef garlic press, and I wanted to show you the world's biggest garlic clove that I'm going to use it with. And I use a kitchen shears, so I keep a separate pair of scissors just for kitchen tasks so they stay clean, and a peeler I use a lot. And if we have time, I'll show you how I use my corn peeler, or I can't remember what the word is for this thing, but we'll look it up. So the most important thing, you do want to invest in a couple of good knives, but you can have a great knife and it can work terribly because you never sharpen it. So the most important thing to remember is to sharpen your knives every week or two, because it'll make every knife work so much better. I have this really easy handheld. I know a lot of people are intimidated by the big knife sharpeners. I have this really easy handheld knife sharpener. And all you do is you pull the knife through it like this a few times, once a week. And then, so that's number 1. And then number 2, to hone it a little bit more. And this makes your knife like new. Every year or two, you might want to get a professional knife sharpening done, but frankly, I don't think I've done that in years. I keep 2 separate cutting boards. There's one cutting board that I have, it's old and worn and I love it, that I use only for onions and onion type things, because when you cut onions on a wooden cutting board, and I really prefer wooden or bamboo cutting boards, it can pick up the smell of the onion. So then if you cut your strawberries on it, your strawberries can taste like onions. So this is my onion cutting board. I try to always keep those straight, and this can be used for anything else. So the basic way to cut an onion, a lot of people struggle with this and this can take way too long, but what I've learned is you cut the end of the onion off, then you can stand it up like this so you have a flat cutting surface. Hold your knife like this, by the way, with your finger and your thumb on the blade. And then you cut it top to bottom in half like that. And then you can peel your onion. And of course, this isn't going to work smoothly because we're on camera, but that's the way it goes sometimes. You guys know sometimes this works so smoothly and sometimes it doesn't. That wasn't too bad. So then what you can do to make this go fast, let's say you want kind of small dice. So you're going to take your knife and cut across your onion like this a couple of times. You're trying to get even pieces. And then you've still got the root end holding it together here. Then you're going to do little slices like this with the tip of your knife all the way down the onion. And then you simply turn it and you can slice off and you have your little diced onion. Okay, so that's that. So then for chives, these are from my herb garden. You can also do scallions. I just love chives. So if you want an oniony flavor, but you don't want it to be so intense if you're using something raw, I use chives or scallions a lot in cooking. And so these, you just keep your tip of your knife on the board and you just cut right through them like that to get them as small as you want them. And move your knife down. If you're really talented, you can move your chives and your knife, but you want to keep the knife in contact with the board and you want to keep your fingers like this so you don't lose any fingers. So that's finely slicing scallions or chives. Okay, so now we're going to go over to our other cutting board where I have tomatoes. I figure onions and tomatoes are probably the things that we cut the most. For that, I'm going to use a serrated knife. Usually when something has a really smooth skin, you often want to use a serrated knife so it doesn't slip. But if you are sharpening your knives regularly, it's not going to slip anyways. But the same kind of thing you can cut it in half like we did with the onion. and then you can slice it this way, and then slice it this way. And you see how fast this goes. When you do it efficiently like this, you're gonna be so much more inclined to cook more and use more vegetables and not buy pre-diced vegetables, which is totally unnecessary. I'm actually gonna switch to my chef's knife. If you know how to cut quickly and you have good knives and they're sharpened. Okay, so that's dicing. You can see I'm finely dicing a tomato. It's taking no time at all. And it falls apart a little bit at the end, but you're fine. You can always go over it at the end a little bit more, like this. Put those aside. And then cherry tomatoes. I use these all the time in the summer. So these you can just hold with your serrated knife. Just cut right through them. If you want to, you can quarter them like that. It goes really quickly. You can turn on some good music, think your own thoughts. I find this kind of therapeutic. Okay, so now I have a yellow squash, or it's same as a yellow zucchini. So same thing. I wanted to show you one long vegetable too. So I'm cutting off the end. And to be efficient about it, I'm going to cut long strips. And I'm going to put it on its side now. So you always want to try to get a flat surface so it doesn't roll around. So I'm going to cut long strips. If I'm going to dice this, I could saute this up with some butter and some corn and some basil and some onions. It'd be so delicious. So now I've got these strips like this, and I can do the same thing. I can cut down long strips this way. Oops, I actually almost cut myself on camera. That would be so embarrassing. And then once you have your long strips like this, you line them up. So you don't want to do one at a time. You line them up, and then you've got your finely diced or chopped. There's mincing, finely dicing, finely chopping. Chopping is sort of the coarsest. Dicing is the next one down. Finely dicing is a little bit smaller. Mincing is even smaller than that. So now you see how this works. Pretty quick and easy, right? Okay, so the last thing, I make tons of corn salads. Today I'm gonna make a corn and tomato salad with a basil, avocado, and lime dressing. Probably some cherry tomatoes in there too. So you can absolutely cut your corn with a knife like this, just cut it straight down. But because I make so many corn, I actually invested in this little gadget, which is fun. You can just slide it right down the corn like that, and it takes off all the corn kernels. And you want to get it as close to the cob as possible because that juicy part right against the cob has a lot of flavor. So just one more kind of fun gadget. You don't need a lot of gadgets. All you really need are 3 knives, but if you do make as many, or a cherry pitter is another great one if you make a lot of cherry pies. Those are the knives you need, and I want us all to remember that we are never too busy to eat well. Hi, this is Aviva Goldfarb from the 6 O'Clock Scramble, and I want to talk to you about how to use fresh herbs in cooking.